Welcome back. This is not the Mustang. It's still there because still mad. Hopefully the wind noise isn't too bad, but it is like 4,000 degrees. It feels like we are working on the surface of the sun. And today we have the wife's SRT in here. So we brought it in to just do a few little thingy-doos. The shifter bushings out here were non-existent, and in typical SRT fashion on the inside, it was zip-tied. So we fixed all that. Came out here, we were adjusting the blow-off valve, and we had an issue with the fans not wanting to kick on. So we bled the coolant system and everything like that, still couldn't get the fans to kick on. And in the middle of us diagnosing that, we tried to hook up the Diablo Sport tuner that came with the car to see what the fan temperature, or what temperature the fans were supposed to kick on. And the ECU decided just, nah, I'm gonna take the day off. Big shout out though to Diablo Sport, because I reached out to them. They answered the phone. We walked through a recovery process over the phone. It did not work. They paid for shipping to have the ECU next day aired to them. They fixed it and next day aired it back. So that's pretty killer. Like I said, I'm gonna give you a quick little walk around of this thing. The body, like we said, is it needs a little love. There's this spot right here that we got to fix, but that's no big deal. There's a couple little ping dents in it. That is, and obviously, you know, spoilers missing. The studs are broke off of the wings, so we will fix that. And then there's this just starting to happen rust right here. So I think the easiest thing to do is, she does not want the car red. And so in order to do this the easy way, we're just going to go ahead, pull all the seals, tape off all the doors, and we are going to fix all of this and flat black all the door jambs. And that way, no matter what color she decides to have it wrapped or painted or whatever, it's going to match just fine. So stance of the car is pretty good. It's already on coilovers. The interior of this car is pretty clean. There's a few things that we'll kind of do for just our liking. Don't think she really likes the red bezel, so we'll fix that. Under here, everything is pretty well stock. They tried to tidy up the wiring, and you know, that's better than some of them that I've seen, but we'll yank all of that off. We'll tech flex everything, heat shrink it, make it nice, and then we're just going to drive this one for a while, make sure it's going to behave the way we want it to, figure out all of its little odds and ends, and then we'll move forward on that. Right now, we are waiting on Mr. UPS to deliver the ECU. So we are debating on tearing that thing down and seeing how that looks. The converter guy is already done with the converter and gave me a few things that he wants me to check out on the transmission, as well as when we install it back into the car, to ensure that this doesn't happen again. So yeah, we just need to make sure everything else is okay in that. And then if it is, then we need a pump, and then that thing will be back in business too. So let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. Man, I'm sick of being broke as... Oh, recover! Oh, okay. ECU back in. Hooked up. Alright. Hit the key there, Scotty. Let's see what happens. Hopefully a start would be... Battery dead. Cool. All right, it didn't start. So we went back in here and did the usual check, the auto shutdown fuse and relay, all that was good. And then we know the ECU is good because they had to recover it, and we know something was wrong because they had to recover it. We came in here and checked in this fuse panel now. And let me make sure, let me see which one it is. Right there, the third one down, second column. LDP, engine relays, engine mod, BSI was blown. So, Scotty, I'm gonna hop in here and see if it breathes. Hey, that's more than we had before. That's something. That's something. Try it again. And prime it a couple times. Okay, this we can fix. Yes. We have things happening now. Hey, you just had to crank it over a little bit more. So there's definitely something up with the fuel draining back to the tank for sure. So, but that's something we can fix. It is running, and it is running good. We do not like this side exhaust. Gonna have to go. But it runs again. Sweet. So now the wife can drive her car and report back with any other little bugs that it has. We want to make sure we get all of that fixed before we move into to doing a bunch of body work and all this stuff. And then she goes to drive it, and it looks really nice, and then it runs like a turd. So we're going to cruise this thing, make sure everything is happy, and make sure our fans kick on now. Quick little update. Took it for a drive. It was a turd. Would only build like 5 or 10 pounds. And of course it has one of the cheapest of the cheap eBay boost controllers I've ever seen.
That's Amazon.
Actually, yeah, China might not even put that out. And then we crawl up under to try to like start looking for boost leaks because it was so bad. And if you see where I have introduced some jank just because I can't find my pipe plug for right now and we want to test this, there was a nipple screwed into the compressor cover right there where you see that big blue piece of line hanging out with a bolt in the end of it. That was just straight to atmosphere. So I'm gonna bet that that was part of our problem. So we are going to hook up the jank boost controller with the jank boost leak blocker and take it for another drive. And if that fixes it, then yeah, we'll make it right. Well, it finally makes boost. It turns out if you plug the port in the turbo manifold that could create a big boost leak, that you get boost. So we are gonna unjank all of this nonsense. So tomorrow when the parts store opens and we get off work, we're gonna clean all this up, get it good, and let the wifey drive it. And oh god, back to transmission hell we go. All right, so yeah, we'll see y'all in a few seconds. Be a few hours for me. All right, we're back over here. The wife went and got some parts for us today, so we were able to clean all of this up. This looks a million times better. Nothing's in danger of getting burned up or anything. So I think now we are going to let her drive this thing, see if there's anything else that we need to fix maintenance-wise on it. This thing doesn't seem to have either one of the front or back tilt mounts on it, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But I think it is officially roadworthy. So we'll take this thing to the house tonight and let her drive it over the next few days and see what she finds that she is unhappy with performance-wise, and we'll knock all that stuff out first. So, okay, it is unfortunately still daylight out, which means that we have time to pull the trash bag off the old 4L80 and start tearing it apart and see what we find. I'll set the camera up on a time lapse and cut away when we find some stuff. Don't be too hard on me. I'm not a transmission guy. I'm just broke as, so I have to do it. So yeah, let's get this thing out and let's start tearing that apart. Well, we have it back apart on the bench. As you can see, everything looks pretty good actually. The only thing that we are, there's a couple areas where we have a little concern. One is this rear band here. Let me see if I can get this in the light. But it is de-lambed in quite a few spots. We did check the engagement point previously, but I don't know if maybe having the creep set up has done something to that. So we're gonna trash this band and we'll get a high energy one, or better yet, I'll call Extreme Automatics and tell them to tell me what to buy. And then I'll ask them about the rear servo depth, because right now we have it roughly about 50 thousandths. So we may need to just take a little bit off of our reverse pin here, but I don't want to hurt the performance because this thing is ridiculously fast, so I don't want to mess that up. It does look like all of the material that we saw, like you can see some of the graying here and on the back side of the filter here. If you remember, the pump bushing was welded to that converter, what was left of it anyway. And I'm pretty sure that that's all we're seeing, because all of the clutches, they still look freaking amazing. It does look like one piece ended up coming through this hub here from the bushing, and you can feel this with your finger. So we'll probably replace this hub, but funny enough, the steel that was backing it looks fairly okay. And like I said, all the clutches, I mean, they still, to me, they look really good. We'll put a set of calipers on them and check them all, but there's nothing there. So it looks like we're gonna need a hub and a rear band and a pump, and we are gonna be back in action. So we're gonna try to sell some old race car parts to buy new race car parts. Yeah. All right, parts have shown up, so it is time to put this thing back together. Like we had showed previously, this had a pretty big wear spot in it here, so we got a new one of those. So this guy will either go in the trash, or maybe we'll see if it can be resurfaced to go into a spare parts for later. But we got that. We got our new Borg Warner band that is not all chipped out. So yeah, we are going to go ahead and get everything cleaned up and ready to go back in. Okay, so we're bolting the transmission back up, and I don't know if you remember from a couple videos ago, but when we pulled the converter out of this thing, it had witness marks from the flex plate bolts hitting. The converter guy did take 20 thousandths off the front of the converter here, because this billet piece was had a lot of extra meat on it, he said. So yeah, but when we took it back off this time, even though we had only made those 2 passes, there was still, it was barely getting into the paint. And now that we're putting it back in, I wanted to show y'all something here. So as most of y'all know, you have to set your converter spacing, and if you do this wrong, it can have dire consequences. So I have a little shim here, and you want 1/8 of an inch of pull out, and this is an 1/8 inch drill bit, and this shim makes that a perfect fit for an 1/8 inch. So watch what happens here though. I did have a thicker shim in this before, so it didn't have exactly 1/8 of an inch of pull out, but now that we are gunning for everything to be absolutely perfect, we pull the converter out like we would be bolting it up. And if I pull like this, like you were bolting it up, you can see that that washer pretty much stays there. But if I let go, it's a little free to move around, but we can't move the converter. It is still hitting the flex plate bolts. So I called ATI, told them that I had purchased this, told them I'd purchased this flex plate, and we were asking some questions, and they said that this is a very unusual thing. So I asked him, I was like, okay, well, can you tell me which bolts are included with the kit that we bought with the spacer, the flex plate, and everything. And he said, sure. And as soon as he clicked on that, he was like, is that a lockup converter? And I said, yep. And he goes, well, it says right here that if it's a lockup converter, you need to remove 20 thousandths from the flex plate bolts. So that was not in any of the documentation. So we're going to pull this back out just a little bit and get the flex plate bolts out of it and get 20 thousandths taken off of them to give us some wiggle room for when our flex plate needs to flex. So yeah. Alright, so just wanted to show you a quick little thing here that I did. So on the flex plate bolts, didn't video this before I started taking them out, but I had some a tube of brake grease, so I just took some and put on the heads of the bolts, slid the transmission back up, and slid the converter forward. And yeah, you can clearly see where they've been hitting. So yeah, we're gonna get those turned down, and that should solve our issue here. Obviously, we're gonna check this again once we get those turned down to make sure that we do have clearance and that we don't have this problem. Because I can't think of a single good thing that can come from this happening. So let's get back to it. All right, so that jank setup, I only wanted to do a couple so I can ensure that we turn the rest of these down properly tomorrow with the lathe, but I didn't want to go through all this and not take enough off. So these are measuring, the heads are around 160 thousandths, 161. And so there's one that we turned down with the janky setup. And we are right at 140. So I got two of these here. So, oh, not that guy. Well, there's another one here somewhere. Here it is. So I'm gonna bolt these up, put grease on the heads, put the transmission back up there, and pull the converter too. And if we have no marks here, then we'll turn the rest of these down tomorrow at work on the lathe, and we'll be back in business. And the transmission is back in the car. Everything works. We did the new fill procedure that the converter guy wanted me to do. And to be honest, after that last pump bushing deal, I made sure every bushing in this thing was slathered in trans gel and lubricated up really, really good so we could try to avoid this problem in the future. Now, the new fill procedure that he had me do, they do on certain Ford vehicles that have an issue with either sucking the pan dry too fast and not lubricating that front pump bushing, which causes it to gall instantly, which is what he believes happened this time around. So instead of the typical, we put a quart and a half in the converter before we put it in the transmission, and then we put 8 quarts down the dipstick. Started it, counted to 5, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shut it off, put 2 more quarts in it. And now, the one unfortunate thing, if you're thinking about getting one of these low-carb dipsticks, they look really nice, and they are a decent piece. But transmission fluid sticks down in that tube really, really easily. So you have to wait a little while before you can get an accurate reading on it. So I've got some other stuff to get taken care of. So for right now, we're going to let this thing sit and settle down. And then we will come down, get a reading on that, and as long as everything is good, we'll take it for a road drive. Transmission pressure is absolutely on point right now, so fingers crossed that we are finally done messing with the transmission. So that's going to do it for this video. We do have some more stuff to work on the SRT, and we have got to figure out when we're going to be able to get this sucker out on the track. So stick around. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.